transcending limitations, obstacles, is the only way for us to live a divine life by experiencing what that is. And one way is to inquire very lovingly, inquire what holds you in suffering, holds you in a certain sense of separation, and giving your power to the highest aspect of yourself. And when we do that, it is called surrender. You give your power to a higher love, and you surrender the suffering. You give your power to that higher wisdom because you simply know that this is right, and yet you surrender all the fears and attachments and insecurities. So what you are surrendering is not who you are. You're surrendering that which you are not. So there's nothing for us to fear or feel insecure about surrendering. There's always grace that comes through and uplifts us when there is some kind of ignorance or a lack of understanding. A lack of understanding creates fear. When we're afraid, it's because we don't fully understand the full picture. We can't perceive the wider reality or the higher reality. And so you give way, isn't it? You give way for grace to uplift you from the ignorance of not understanding maybe why, how. Like, that's not really important. But the higher way is important. It's the higher trust that sometimes we just don't know everything. Many times we don't know everything. Everyone does not know what's about to happen next. But should you live in fear and insecurity just because of not knowing? No. You live in the now with in grace, in love, in beauty. And that's the eternity of divine life, divine living. And many times we have to remember, it's a practice of remembrance, that ultimately we are one. Ultimately we are divine nature, divine essence. And what are we subscribing to? If we had to choose, wouldn't you choose the utmost truth and pure presence rather than give in to the worries or insecurities or fears of the unknown? So there is a higher way of being. And for that, we must have in ourselves the awareness of divine. So knowledge is important at first, yes, because knowledge helps us to illuminate the ignorance. But then we surrender the knowledge because it's not even needed. And you allow this higher presence of grace to uplift you, because it always does. It's not a personal will. It's not the personal way. It has nothing to do with the personal will or way. The personal will or way it's like a 1% compared to the divine's will or way, 100%. And 100% is that oneness, wholeness. So for that, we must practice remembrance. Remember who you are so that you can be free. You can live a life which is divine. You can live a life which is eternal, because divine nature is eternal. Thus, it doesn't matter if you're alive in this body or not. It really doesn't matter. From the eyes of divine, this lifetime is like a blink of an eye. It really doesn't matter so much. And don't get me wrong, it's not that we shouldn't thrive, to improve ourselves, of course. You know, we are here to evolve and grow and expand and overcome all obstacles. All obstacles. But why are we doing that? What's the purpose of it all? Why are you working on yourself spiritually? What is the purpose? Isn't it the purpose to know who you really are? Isn't that the ultimate goal? And that ultimate goal of awakening to your divine nature, once that takes place, you realize that nothing really matters. Nothing really matters. Everything is impermanent. Everything is constantly changing. What are we worrying about? Everything is constantly changing. You can't put a grip on anything. If you have children, your children are growing. You can't keep them. You can't have them. They're going to grow up. They're going to do their thing. They're going to live on their own and travel the world, whatever. So things are constantly changing. Our body is constantly changing. We're growing older every moment. Everything is a constant change. And yet we worry so much about it. And yet we overlook, always, we overlook the eternity of our divine nature. So we give so much importance to the impermanence, and yet that which is absolute, that which is eternal, we overlook it 1,000 times. And so this is why it's so important for us to remember divine within. Otherwise, how would we come close? How would we become the one, true self, true heart, free the soul from incarnations over and over until we're able to really fully be able to transcend all these illusions?